What if the most important day of your life was also the day everything started falling apart? A restaurant drowning in debt, a family trying to hold itself together, a chef who suddenly decides to walk away from everything he built, and a team that's about to face the biggest challenge of their lives. Today, we're breaking down the complete story of The Bear Season 5, the emotional and intense final chapter of one of television's most celebrated series. This isn't just a story about food. It's a story about family, about grief, about second chances, and about finding out who you really are when everything around you is falling apart. And trust me, what happens before this season ends changes every character forever. Let's begin. The story picks up immediately after the shocking events of Season 4. The Bear restaurant is already hanging by a thread. Bills are piling up, pressure is mounting, and the entire staff is desperately chasing a dream that seems almost impossible: a Michelin Star. But before anyone can focus on the future, Season 5 opens with a special episode called Gary. And this episode takes us back in time, long before the bear existed. Long before Carmy returned home, back when Mikey Prezado was still alive. We see Richie saying goodbye to his very pregnant wife, Tiffany. She reminds him to be home by 5:15 p.m. because she's convinced that's when she'll go into labor. Richie laughs it off, but that deadline becomes important later. Moments later, Mikey arrives. The two friends head toward Gary, Indiana. Their mission sounds mysterious. Jimmy has ordered them to deliver a package, but Mikey refuses to tell Richie what's inside. As they drive through the highways, Richie proudly plays a mixtape he created specifically for the trip. The mood feels light, fun, like two brothers spending one last perfect day together. But underneath the laughter, something feels off. Something isn't right with Mikey. After crossing state lines, they stop so Mikey can call Jimmy. When he returns, he tells Richie they need to wait several hours before making the delivery. So they begin killing time. They visit a local diner called Coney King. There, Mikey starts talking with a waitress named Alicia. He asks if she likes her job. When she says yes, because she loves meeting people, Mikey seems strangely fascinated by her answer, almost like he's searching for a reason to feel the same way. Back in the car, Richie asks for baby name suggestions. Mikey jokingly suggests several names. Then he says one simple name: Eva. Years later, that becomes the name of Richie's daughter. A tiny moment, but one that becomes heartbreaking when you know what eventually happens. As the day continues, they play basketball with local kids. They joke around, laugh, and enjoy each other's company. For a while, everything feels normal. Then Mikey suddenly stops at a house. He walks inside and purchases drugs. It's a small moment, but it reminds us that even during his happiest days, Mikey was fighting battles nobody could fully see. Soon, Richie notices a nearby bar. He wants to go inside. Mikey refuses, at first, but then a woman named Sherry comes outside and convinces him to join them. Inside the bar, the atmosphere becomes lively. The group plays a game called Fact or Fiction. Everyone takes turns telling stories. Richie shares an embarrassing but hilarious story about accidentally humiliating himself in front of an attractive math tutor. The entire group bursts into laughter, even Mikey. And for a brief moment, he seems genuinely happy. But what happens next changes the tone of the entire episode. Mikey and Sherry sneak away to the bathroom. They smoke, they talk, and for the first time, Mikey begins revealing what's happening inside his head. He tells Sherry about his childhood, about how his mother used to scratch his back at night and tell him stories about the next day. Stories filled with hope, stories filled with possibilities. But one day, when he asked her to do it again, she coldly told him, "It's just a day." That memory never left him. And now, years later, neither has the pain. Then Mikey reveals something even darker. He describes how his mind constantly swings between extreme happiness and overwhelming emptiness. One moment he feels alive. The next moment he feels like nothing matters. Like life itself has no meaning. It's one of the clearest glimpses we've ever seen into Mikey's mental health struggles. And suddenly, all the jokes and smiles we've seen throughout the day feel different. Meanwhile, Richie is having the time of his life. He's drinking, laughing, and calling Tiffany to reassure her that everything is fine. But he doesn't know disaster is approaching. Because Mikey's phone has died. Jimmy has been trying to reach him all day. And when Richie finally realizes it, he rushes to find Mikey. The delivery still needs to happen. They need to leave immediately. But before they can go, Mikey stands up and begins speaking. At first, it's beautiful. He praises Richie, tells everyone he's going to be a great father, says his life is glowing. Richie becomes emotional. The two friends hug. And for a moment, it feels like one of the most touching scenes in the entire series. Then everything changes. Without warning, Mikey turns cruel. Violently cruel. He begins insulting Richie, attacking him, telling him he'll abandon his daughter just like his own father abandoned him. He calls Richie a coward, a failure, a screw-up. Richie is stunned, heartbroken, confused. Even after slapping Mikey twice, the insults don't stop. Eventually they leave, and finally deliver the mysterious package. So what's inside? After all the suspense? The answer is surprisingly simple. Plastic pump impellers. That's it. Jimmy only sent them because FedEx workers were on strike. The entire mission was basically a delivery job. But that isn't the point. The trip was never about the package. It was about Mikey, his friendship with Richie, and the tragedy of a man who desperately wanted to be happy but couldn't escape his own mind. The two drive back toward Chicago. Neither says a word. The silence feels devastating. At one point, Mikey tries playing Richie's mixtape again. Richie throws it out the window. Their friendship has been wounded. Maybe permanently. Then they get stuck waiting for a freight train. Richie checks the time. He knows he won't make it back by 5:15 p.m. And just when we think the episode is over, the story jumps back to the present. Richie sits alone in his car. He looks at the empty passenger seat, thinking, remembering, haunted by the past. Then suddenly, a car slams directly into him. The screen cuts, and the episode ends, leaving viewers stunned. But while Richie survives, that accident is only the beginning. Because the very next day will become the most important day in the history of the bear. And nobody is ready for what's about to happen.
The next few hours inside the bear become even more chaotic. Outside, a powerful storm continues flooding parts of Chicago. Inside the restaurant, problems keep piling up one after another. The ceiling leaks, pipes burst, reservations suddenly flood into the system. And worst of all, Carmy finally reveals that he's leaving the restaurant. The announcement shocks everyone. Richie is stunned. Tina is speechless. Jimmy is furious. And Sydney suddenly realizes that the future of the bear now rests on her shoulders. At first, Sydney struggles. For years, she worked beside Carmy. Now she must lead without him. And that turns out to be much harder than she expected. Meanwhile, another crisis explodes. The reservation system accidentally accepts far more guests than the restaurant can handle. They don't have enough food, they don't have enough staff, and they definitely don't have enough time. Richie secretly admits that he never canceled the extra reservations he was supposed to remove. It sounds like a disaster, but Richie believes something. He believes every customer walking through those doors has a reason for being there. A birthday, a reunion, a celebration, a memory, and he refuses to turn them away. As service begins, the restaurant transforms into complete madness. Customers keep arriving. The kitchen gets louder. Orders keep stacking up. Everyone is stressed. Everyone is exhausted. Yet somehow they keep moving forward. Meanwhile, Marcus begins struggling with self-doubt. Even after winning major recognition, he secretly believes his success only happened because of Luca and other chefs. For the first time, we see Marcus questioning his own talent. And Sydney is doing everything she can to hold the team together. But what happens next changes everything. A famous food critic named Dearborn arrives at the restaurant. The very person who could save the bear or destroy it forever. And now the pressure becomes unbearable. The arrival of Dearborn changes the entire night. Suddenly, every dish matters. Every mistake matters. Every second matters. The staff know that one bad service could end everything. To survive, Marcus comes up with an ingenious solution. Instead of one chef handling each plate, the entire kitchen forms an assembly line. Each person contributes one step. Together, they move faster than ever before. At first, it works perfectly. The food flows, customers are happy, the critic seems impressed. Hope begins to return. But then disaster strikes again. One of the stoves fails. The kitchen loses a major cooking station. And just when they think things can't get worse, Carmy drops one of the most important dishes of the night. Everything freezes. For years, Carmy has been seen as the genius, the perfectionist, the leader. But now everyone watches him make a devastating mistake. And in that moment, something unexpected happens. Nobody blames him. Nobody panics. Instead, Richie and Sydney support him, because this restaurant is no longer about one person, it's about all of them. With time running out, Sydney takes a huge risk. Instead of serving one of Carmy's signature dishes, she sends out her own creation, the famous short ribs with Coca-Cola, a dish that represents her style, her creativity, her leadership. And the response is incredible. Customers love it, the critic loves it, and for the first time, Sydney fully steps out of Carmy's shadow. Meanwhile, Marcus finally gains confidence in himself. Tina proudly serves her own dish to customers. Richie proves he can lead under pressure. And the Bear begins to feel less like Carmy's restaurant and more like a family working together. By the end of the night, exhausted and emotional, the team completes what might be their final service together. They stand silently, looking at one another, wondering if everything they fought for was enough. But no one expected what happens next, because the biggest surprise of the entire season is still waiting around the corner.
As the longest and most emotional day in the Bears' history finally comes to an end, the exhausted staff return to the restaurant the next morning. Nobody knows whether they survived. Nobody knows whether the critic loved the food, and nobody knows if the Bear will even remain open. But beneath the exhaustion, something has changed. For the first time in a very long time, the restaurant feels united. Not because the problems are gone, but because everyone fought through them together. Meanwhile, Carmy is quietly preparing for the next chapter of his life. After years of living inside kitchens, chasing perfection, and pushing himself beyond his limits, he has finally accepted a painful truth. Cooking no longer makes him happy. For most of the series, Carmy believed success meant sacrificing everything: his peace, his relationships, his future. But now he understands something different. A dream can save you, but it can also trap you, and that's exactly what happened to him. While everyone else is moving forward, Carmy begins letting go. At the restaurant, Natalie reveals that they have just enough money to survive another day. It's not much, but for the Bear, another day means everything. Then another important story reaches its conclusion. For months, Ebraheim has been working on a secret idea, an idea that nobody took seriously at first: expanding the original beef sandwich operation through franchising. Earlier, he was too nervous to present it. He worried nobody would listen, nobody would believe in him. But now, things are different. When Carmy finally hears the proposal, he immediately supports it. In fact, he thinks it's brilliant. And suddenly, Ebraheim's dream becomes real. Elsewhere, Gary receives great news. After spending years doing countless jobs around the restaurant, he finally earns recognition as a professional sommelier. For Gary, it's proof that all those years of hard work mattered. At the same time, Marcus and Luca prepare to go their separate ways. Luca believes Marcus is finally ready to run the pastry station on his own. The student has become the master, and for Marcus, that moment means everything. But before any celebration can happen, another mystery finally gets solved. Remember the missing spoons? The strange spoon thief everyone had been searching for? Well, the answer is surprisingly simple. It's Marcus. After once finding himself without a spoon during service, he became obsessed with making sure it never happened again, so he secretly started collecting them, dozens of them, hidden away. The revelation creates one of the season's funniest moments. But then comes the phone call that changes everything. For days, Carmy has been receiving calls from an unknown number. He keeps ignoring them, maybe because he's scared, maybe because he's tired, maybe because he's simply not ready. Finally, he answers. The caller introduces himself. His name is Peter Clark, and what he says next leaves Carmy speechless. Peter is connected to Michelin, the organization responsible for the world's most prestigious restaurant ratings. Months earlier, he had secretly visited the Bear, back when the restaurant was still struggling, back when nobody knew if they would survive, and now he has the results. Sydney notices Carmy looking completely shaken. She asks the question everyone wants answered. Did we get a star? Carmy pauses. Then he gives an answer nobody expected. No. For a moment, it feels like all their hard work has failed. But then he finishes the sentence. We got 2. 2 Michelin stars. Not 1. 2. The room feels frozen. For years, this was the impossible dream, the goal that kept everyone awake at night, the reason they sacrificed so much, and somehow they achieved it. Sydney can barely process the news. She tries to stay calm, but the emotions become overwhelming. She rushes outside, throws her arms around Carmy, and breaks down in tears. It's one of the most powerful moments of the entire season, not because they won, but because they earned it together. Meanwhile, life continues moving forward for everyone else.
Tina receives a promotion and officially becomes the restaurant's CDC, a role that once seemed impossible for her. Marcus starts building confidence in himself. Richie receives an invitation to an international hospitality seminar in Japan. At first, he's terrified. He's never even flown on an airplane before. But eventually, he decides to go, because growth always begins where comfort ends. Even Jimmy begins planning for the future. With Ebraheim's franchise idea moving forward, new opportunities start appearing. For the first time, there is real hope that the restaurant's legacy will continue beyond its walls. Then comes one of the most important scenes in the entire series. Carmy visits an architecture firm. Not a restaurant, not a kitchen, an architecture firm. The move surprises everyone, but it makes perfect sense. Throughout his life, Carmy has been obsessed with creating things, building things, designing experiences. Architecture allows him to do all of that without destroying himself in the process. When asked why he wants the job, he gives an honest speech. He talks about loving art as a child, about becoming a chef, about chasing perfection, and about finally discovering that success means nothing if you're miserable. For the first time, Carmy isn't running toward achievement. He's running toward peace. And then comes the final celebration. Richie brings his daughter Eva to the restaurant. Officially, he's showing her around. Unofficially, everyone has planned a surprise birthday party. Suddenly, the restaurant fills with familiar faces. Friends, family, coworkers, people who have shared this journey from the very beginning. Even Claire is there, the woman whose relationship with Carmy once fell apart. Their interaction is warm, comfortable, hopeful. The show never directly tells us they're back together, but it strongly suggests that healing has finally begun. As the party continues, we see one last montage of everyone's future. Marcus moving forward, Tina embracing leadership, Richie preparing for Japan, Ebraheim building something bigger than he ever imagined, Sydney fully accepting her role as captain of the Bear, and Carmy finally learning how to live. Then comes the final scene. Alone in the office, Carmy picks up his phone. He opens a message and sends a text to Mikey's old number, the brother he lost, the person whose death started this entire story. The message is simple, all good, just 2 words, but they carry years of pain, grief, guilt, and love. For the first time since Mikey died, Carmy truly means it. Outside the office, the sounds of laughter continue, friends celebrating, family together, life moving forward. The Bear wasn't really about food. It wasn't about Michelin stars, and it wasn't about becoming the best restaurant in Chicago. It was about broken people finding each other, learning to heal, learning to trust, and discovering that family isn't always the people you're born with. Sometimes it's the people who stay beside you when everything falls apart. As the screen fades to black, Richie is seen flying toward Japan, Jessica sitting beside him, the future wide open. The sounds of the birthday party continue. The Bear logo appears one final time, and with that, the story comes to an end. A story about grief, about second chances, about family, and about finding hope in the middle of chaos. If you enjoyed this complete breakdown of The Bear Season 5, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments. Which moment hit you the hardest? The 2 Michelin stars, Carmy's goodbye, or that final message to Mikey? Until next time, thanks for watching.